W5FC. Mr. Chairman, I need to make myself very clear. If we uplink now, Skynet will be in control of your military.
But you'll be in control of Skynet, right?
That is correct, sir.
Skynet.
Does anyone need to use the repeater before we begin the 9 p.m. Skynet? This is KF5PDS. My name is Billye, and I'll be your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. Skynet is a weekly net called every Saturday night at 9 p.m. concerning the subject of astronomy. Our purpose is to help amateurs become more familiar with the nighttime and daytime sky, astronomy, and space in general. This net is open to all amateurs interested in this topic, and we encourage your participation, comments, and suggestions for this net. Stations with priority or emergency traffic may enter the net at any time by using the pro sign break and your call sign. Is there any emergency or priority traffic? This is a directed net. Please do not transmit without direction from net control. That would be me. And stations are reminded to ID at the end of your transmissions. This weekly net operates on 146.880 megahertz with a PL tone of 110.9. Check-ins via Echolink are also possible using the W5FC-R station ID or Echolink node 37247. Tonight's topics, astronomy charts, pictures, and live audio-video links are available online. Go to www.w5fc.org right now for the complete list. And remember to tell others about this popular net. You can now check into the net electronically by going to the club website, w5fc.org, look for tonight's Skynet announcement, and click on the hot link to check in. We will acknowledge you on the air, and don't worry, if you want to check in via voice, we'll continue to do that too, over air and Echolink. All amateur operators are welcome. You need not be a member of any amateur radio club to participate. The net is 90 minutes long and is structured in several parts. General announcements, Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, where and when you can look through a telescope, National Space Society events, discussion topic of the evening, Was Up, space exploration and space history, Constellation of the week, space launches of the week, visible satellite passages over the next couple of days, astronomical Q&A, and our 73 round. All amateurs licensed to transmit in via w5fc.org. We have KE5ICX, Tom in Corpus Christi on the All-Star link, N5BB, Bill in Irving, over-air radio, KF5JHA, Chaz, Milky Way Galaxy Sol Solar System, multiple modes, and Tony, NT5TM, in Bird City, over-air radio. Now let's start with voice check-ins, starting with short time check-ins. Please come now with your call sign name and where you're transmitting from this evening. Okay, I'm not hearing any short time check-ins right now, so we'll move over to general check-ins. Same request for general check-ins. Please come now with your call sign name and where you're transmitting from this evening.
This is Whiskey 5, Golf, Uniform, Sierra, Gus, far, far northeast Dallas.
Alpha, India 5, Oscar Lima, Dan, Southwest Fort Worth.
This is Kilo Golf 5, Whiskey Victor Lima, James in North Carrollton.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Zulu Bravo Lima, Bill, Farmers Branch.
This is Whiskey Bravo 4, Mike Foxtrot, India, WB4MFI, Ted, Dallas, low power.
All right, that was a good round of check-ins. Let me go ahead and acknowledge those who checked in. So we have W5GUS, Gus, far, far northeast Dallas. Alpha India 5, Oscar Lima, Dan in southwest Fort Worth. KG5, Whiskey Victor Lima, James in North Carrollton. KF5ZBL, Bill in Farmers Branch. And WB4 MFI, Ted, Dallas, low power. All right, do we have any more general check-ins? If so, please come now with your call sign name and where you're transmitting from this evening.
Kilo India 5, Whiskey Tango, Joe in Lancaster, Mobile.
November Victor 5, Foxtrot, Virginia in Fort Worth.
Let me get those. Kilo India 5, Whiskey Tango, Joe in Lancaster, Mobile, and NV5F, Virginia in Fort Worth. Do we have any more general check-ins? If so, please come now with your call sign name and where you're transmitting from. Not hearing any, so I'm looking at Echolink, and everyone that's on Echolink right now has already checked in either by the sheet or general check-in. So we've got everybody on Echolink so far. So let's go ahead and open it up to an open round of check-ins. Anyone who would like to check in can do so now. Any mode, please come now with your call sign name and where you're transmitting from. All right, not hearing any, so we'll go ahead and get started. Thanks to all who have checked in to Skynet. All right, let's get started with general announcements. Do we have any general announcements for this evening's net? These can be ham, astronomical, space, or of general interest to licensed hams. If you have an announcement, please come now with your call sign.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike.
NT5TM, Tony, good evening. What announcements do you have for us tonight?
Good evening, Billy. Great to hear you as net control. Unfortunately, I don't have that much tonight. It's hot out, and there's no meeting on the air tomorrow, and no Racy's net either, and no White Rock Lake Fox Hunt. It's a quiet day in the ham world. I do want to mention that this is a great net, but you could stay up for one more net, maybe? The Afterglow movie discussion will focus on The Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, a blockbuster from 2004. That net will be at about 10:35 tonight on this repeater. This is a good one. Moreover, it's free of almost any negatives. No violence, no blood, no gore, no bad synthesizer music. You may have already seen it. Even if you haven't, please join us tonight at about 10:35, and we will love to hear your thoughts on whether you would see it if you haven't seen it yet. I also always have to put in a plug for GeekNet. This meets on the fourth Monday, that's this Monday at 7 p.m. on this repeater, and anything that you think is geeky is welcome. You could talk about rare butterflies, or, you know, if you like bunny rabbits, you could talk about the bunny rabbit that lives in our neighbor's yard. Well, your neighbor, hopefully. Whatever you like, the news of the weird, strange questions, it's welcome on GeekNet as long as you think it's weird and geeky. Join us. I'm Net Control, and I hope to hear you. NT5TM.
Great. Thank you very much, Tony. Appreciate that. And looking forward to the Afterglow discussion tonight. And looking forward to GeekNet on Monday. It's always a good time on GeekNet. All right, I have a few announcements. The AMSAT Radio Amateur Satellite Group has 3 nets available to Dallas residents. On Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. Central Time, you can check into the National AMSAT Net, learn all about amateur satellites and how you can use them in amateur radio. The National AMSAT Net will bring the most up-to-date information on amateur satellites currently in use or new ones coming online. You will need Echolink installed and you registered. You can find the net under Groups and AMSAT. Also, a live audio link is available on their website at www.amsatnet.com. This net originates in Houston, Texas. 2 local nets are available in Dallas. Both of these nets encourage active check-ins. You can ask questions of the net control as well as others checked in. The AMSAT Net East, Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas, is every Tuesday at 8 p.m. on this repeater, 146.880 megahertz with a PL tone of 110.9. Tuesdays, Tom N5HYP is the net control. All are welcome to check in. The first Tuesday of the month is the DARC Club Night, so there's no AMSAT East on that night. The Dallas AMSAT Net West is every Wednesday at 9 p.m. on the Arlington repeater, 147.140 megahertz with a PL tone of 110.9 and a positive offset. The DARC hosts a number of nets on Monday evenings at 7 p.m. Check the W5FC.org website. As Tony mentioned, this Monday will be GeekNet, Geek Beyond Ham Radio. This Monday, Geek Out Beyond Ham Radio. We expand topics to include computers, science, space, news of the weird, and much more. No topic is off limits, just as long as it's geeky. Tony NT5TM is net control. Saturdays are the Night of Nets, where we keep the airwaves buzzing until midnight. Here's the lineup. TechNet from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Q&A on all things ham radio related. There's also a swap meet, Rookie's Corner, news and information, and ham radio events and contests, alternating net control each week. And Skynet from 9 to 10:30 p.m. Astronomy, space, and space exploration are the topics. Also news and information, satellite passes, and the Constellation of the Week. Join this popular net about ham's second most favorite hobby, astronomy, alternating net controls. And as Tony mentioned, after Skynet is the Afterglow movie net from 10:30 to midnight. Will it be a hit or the dreaded miss? Thumbs up or thumbs down? You make the call. We watch an assigned science fiction movie and then review it for about 90 minutes. We discuss plot, characterization, special effects, music, and answer the question, will I dare watch this movie ever again? Everyone is welcome to check in, even if you haven't seen the movie, which might actually be a plus. First and third Sundays are the Dallas Amateur Radio Club meeting on the air. What's going on in your ham world? Tell us. Also learn about the club that maintains this popular repeater, the Dallas Amateur Radio Club. Club news and information, events, activities, including club meetings, lecture and lab, public service events, contests, and just general discussion. Everyone can check in to this net. And daily are the ARRLNet National Traffic System Training Net, every night at 6:30 p.m. Central Time. Learn how message traffic is handled on this formal training net. Newbies are welcome to check in, as this is a training net. The NTS also conducts an evening net on the Irving Whiskey Alpha 5 Charlie Kilo Foxtrot repeater 146.72 MHz at 9:30 p.m. All are welcome to check in on any or all of these nets. And as we've mentioned before, following Skynet is the Afterglow movie net. So at this time, I will turn the net over to Tom, KE5ICX, to give us tonight's Afterglow info from KF5 PDS.
And thank you, Billy. This is KE5ICX down in Corpus. Here is tonight's Afterglow highly accurate info. Thank you for buying Microsoft Windows. You'll never forget 3.0. This product will ensure your love of Windows for years to come. Joel plugged the device into his laptop, and the other end he clipped to his earlobe. This seemed strange, but Windows immediately accepted the connection, and the little hardware list red warning sign went away. He began using Windows, and a message immediately came up when he attempted to run the proprietary program he had to install from his workplace. Windows responded with, "Windows has detected an error. Would you like to reboot or simply have this error permanently removed from your memory?" The reboot selection didn't work, of course, so the USB port issued a shock to Joel's short-term memory. He'd forgotten who he'd worked for and decided he needed a job, as he had no recollection of having worked for his firm only seconds before. Only seconds before he had received a paycheck from. Windows wasn't done with him yet. It offered something else. Would you like me to add Forget Your Girlfriend Forever package to the Windows You'll Never Forget 3.0? Before Joel could select no, Windows YNF 3.0 answered for him, yes. Clementine, his girlfriend, was now unknown to him. This new version of Windows could do everything, or in his case, nothing, because he wasn't aware. So join us for another Jim Carrey movie, this one a SF comedy. I'm not sure it's really a comedy, but actually it's pretty darn good. Tonight at 10:30 p.m. It's called Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. You'll find the website for Skynet tonight, and I do have the YouTube link available. It's free. I don't know if you're going to be able to watch it while doing this net, but you might be able to. That's it, Billy. This is KE5ICX. Back to net control.
Great, thank you, Tom. You can keep up with all the DARC events, nets, and activities by going to the club website, W5FC.org. So let me check over on the website check-in, see if we have any new folks. And it looks like we've got one AB5DM, which is Dustin in Dallas over Air Radio. So welcome, Dustin. Now I'll take additional voice check-ins, so if you have not had a chance to check into this evening's net over air, please do so now. Just give me your call sign, name, where you're transmitting from this evening.
KI5, JSAM, Kilo, India 5, Juliet, Charlie, Mike, Thomas from Grapevine. Charlie 5, Victor Charlie, Cecil, and Mesquite.
All right, let me pick those two up. KI5JCM, Thomas and Grapevine, and Alpha Charlie 5, Victor Charlie, Cecil and Mesquite. Welcome to Skynet. Do we have any other voice check-ins? If so, please come now with your call sign name, where you're transmitting from. Okay, not hearing any, so we'll go ahead with our next segment. So next up is Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, where and when you can look through a telescope. So at this time, I'll turn the net over to Chaz, KF5JHA. The net is yours from KF5PDS.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Billy. Excuse me. This is Chaz. On July the 24th, that was last night, there was the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas Club meeting. The meeting was held at 7:30 p.m. at the University of Texas at Dallas. There was also a Zoom component for members. The featured speaker was our vice president. He talked about early remembrances of astronomy all the way up to present time, with his involvement in astronomy involving his two sons, and it was really interesting. He even talked about some astrophotography. Now, the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas hosts Saturday night public observing sessions in this area. Skynet was picked to be on Saturday night, so there could be an opportunity for live reports from the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas public observing sessions. On the fourth Saturday of the month, that would be tonight, there is no scheduled stargazing, unfortunately. Now, you can check the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas website at texasastro.org for up-to-date information and details about meetings and public observing sessions. This is KF5JHA, back to our net control.
Great, thank you very much, Chaz. This is KF5PDS, Billy, your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. All right, next up is National Space Society events and activities. So at this time, I'll turn the net over to Bill, N5BB. The net is yours from KF5PDS.
Thank you very much, Billy. This is N5BB. I happen to be the Vice President and the membership National Space Society North Texas chapter. The National Space Society is a nonprofit group based in the U.S. which is interested in the exploration and development of space and the creation of a spacefaring civilization. Our local National Space Society chapter website is ntx.nss.org. Our group also has an active Facebook page. Just type National Space Society of North Texas into the search box and request access. The North Texas chapter of the National Space Society has 5 events going on this month. We're very active here in July. Number 1, at our July the 12th chapter meeting, we discussed the Nancy Grace Roman Space Telescope, which is scheduled to be launched in an Earth-Sun L2 orbit. It's a Lagrange point on August the 30th. Our chapter meets on the second Sunday afternoon of each month at 3:30 p.m. at Spring Creek Barbecue on Highway 183 in Irving. Event number 2. Last Saturday, July the 18th, Moon Day was held at the Frontiers of Flight Museum at Love Field in Dallas. At least 11 North Texas chapter National Space Society members were there, with exhibits and handouts about human activities in space. Former NASA astronaut Carl Walls gave the keynote speech. The National Space Society members got a group photograph with him. Event number 3. Last Thursday, that's 2 days ago, July 23rd, the inaugural DFW Space Happy Hour networking event was held at Jay Gilligan's Bar and Grill in Arlington. This was not a National Space Society event, but at least 9 National Space Society North Texas members were there. And we had a lot of fun and met a lot of people. Event number 4. Today, Space Day was held at the Fort Worth Museum of Science and History. This is off of Montgomery Street. It's in the Museum District in Fort Worth. The National Space Society North Texas chapter was there at tables with handouts and 10 chapter members, if I counted correctly. Firefly Aerospace from the Austin area was there with a table, and they gave a presentation also. Exos Aerospace from North Texas, their location is out east of Dallas, about an hour near Greenville. So Exos Aerospace was there. They had a table, as well as Blue Origin also had a table. Other exhibitors were the Aldrin Family Foundation. That's right, Buzz Aldrin's family. The Space Workforce Incubator for Texas, the Fort Worth Astronomical Society, and the Monig Meteorite Gallery and Collection from TCU in Fort Worth. There were also lots of other exhibitors in crazy costumes and, fictional space things as opposed to, scientific space things. And one more event, event number 5. This coming Friday, July the 31st. On the last Friday evening of each month, from 6 to 8 p.m., the National Space Society North Texas chapter sponsors a social event called Space Rendezvous at Cheddar's Restaurant, 700 West Highway 635 in Irving. You do not need to be a member of any organization to attend. 10 people attended the June event, and I wasn't even there. I was out of town. So we had a really good showing of people. The big National Space Society event each year is the International Space Development Conference, ISDC. This is a big 4-day conference, all things about space. There's everybody there from, like Jim Green, who retired as the chief NASA scientist, to the current NASA administrator, to all kinds of other neat people have been there in the last few years. People from, Axios Space and many other space developing companies. Anyway, the ISDC 2026 occurred in early June in Virginia, near Washington, D.C., and I attended. Next year, ISDC 2027 will be held in Los Angeles, California, adjacent to LAX Airport, from May the 27th to the 30th, 2027. If you have any questions about any of these events or the National Space Society, please contact Bill, N5BB, that's November 5 Bravo Bravo, at my QRZ listed email address or at space@byrom.net. That's SPACE@BYROM.net. As you can see, there's a lot of space-related things going on in the DFW area right now. That's all I've got. N5BB, back to net.
Great. Thank you very much, Bill. This is KFI-PDS, Billye, your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. All right, next up is discussion topic of the evening. So my topic for tonight is the Centaur of attention. Have you ever heard of a centaur before outside of mythology? This was a topic that I came across, and I was curious about it, so I looked it up and thought I would bring it as my topic tonight. So in case you have not heard, in planetary astronomy, a centaur is a small solar system body that orbits the sun between Jupiter and Neptune and crosses the orbits of one or more of the giant planets. Centaurs generally have unstable orbits because of this. Almost all of their orbits have dynamic lifetimes of only a few million years. But there is one known centaur, 514107 Epaoka Awala, which may be in a stable though retrograde orbit. Centaurs typically exhibit the characteristics of both asteroids and comets. They are named after the mythological centaurs that were a mixture of horse and human. Observational bias toward large objects makes determination of the total centaur population difficult. Estimates for the number of centaurs in the solar system, more than 1 kilometer in diameter, range from as low as 44,000 to more than 10 million. And this information can be found, by the way, on the Centaur Wikipedia article. There's also a wonderful graphic. And just as a reminder, if you go over to the YouTube channel, you can Google or search on YouTube DARC Skynet and find tonight's live transmission. You can also find it on the W5FC.org website, and you should go out there and see Tom's awesome slideshow, and also stick around for the Was Up slideshow and Constellation of the week. We've got lots of things going on over here on YouTube. So just as a reminder, if you want to see the graphics and things that I'm talking about and what Chaz will be talking about later, come on out here to YouTube and take a look. It's a great slideshow. So the first centaur to be discovered under the definition of the Jet Propulsion Laboratory and the one used here was 944 Hidalgo in 1920. However, they were not recognized as a distinct population until the discovery of 2060 Chiron in 1977. The largest confirmed centaur is 10199 Chariklo, which at 250 kilometers in diameter is as big as a mid-sized main belt asteroid and is known to have a system of rings. It was discovered in 1997. No centaur has been photographed up close, although there is evidence that Saturn's moon Phoebe, imaged by the Cassini probe in 2004, may be a captured centaur that originated in the Kuiper Belt. In addition, the Hubble Space Telescope has gleaned some information about the surface features of 8405 as Bolus. Outer planets, and if so, might be considered an X-Centaur, but the centaurs seen today all originated elsewhere. Of the objects known to occupy centaur-like orbits, approximately 30 have been found to display comet-like dust comas, with 3, 2060 Chiron, 60558 Echolink, and 29P Schwarzmann-Wachmann 1 having detected levels of volatile production in orbits entirely beyond Jupiter. Chiron and Echolink are therefore classified as both centaurs and comets, while Schwarzmann-Wachmann 1 has always held a comet designation. Other centaurs, such as 52872 Okiro, are suspected of having shown comas. Any centaur that is perturbed close enough to the Sun is expected to be a comet. There's a lot of information out here, so I'm going to kind of skip around. If you want to read the full article again, go to Centaur on the Wikipedia page. I'm just going to give you some information about physical characteristics, although Tom's got orbit classification up here. Let me find where that is. Not seeing that information, but I'll go ahead and give you some information about physical characteristics. Compared to dwarf planets and asteroids, the relatively small size and distance of Centaurs precludes remote observation of surfaces, but color indices and spectra can provide clues about surface composition and insight into the origin of the bodies. So a little bit about colors. The colors of Centaurs are very diverse, which challenges any simple model of surface composition. In the side diagram, the color indices are measures of apparent magnitude of an object through blue, visible, and red filters. The diagram illustrates these differences in exaggerated colors for all Centaurs with known color indices. For reference, two moons, Triton and Phoebe, and planet Mars are plotted. Yellow labels, size not to scale. Centaurs appear to be grouped into two classes, very red, for example, 5145 Pholus, blue or blue-gray, according to some authors, for example, 2060 Chiron. There are numerous theories to explain this color difference, but they can be broadly divided into two categories. The color difference results from a difference in the origin and/or composition of the Centaur. The color difference reflects a different level of space weathering from radiation and/or cometary activity. As examples of the second category, the reddish color of Pholus has been described as a possible mantle of irradiated red organics, whereas Chiron has instead had its ice exposed due to its periodic cometary activity, giving it a blue-gray index. The correlation with activity and color is not certain, however, as the active Centaurs span the range of colors from blue to red. Alternatively, Pholus may have only been recently expelled from the Kuiper Belt, so that surface transformation processes have not yet taken place. So some information about the spectra. The interpretation of spectra is often ambiguous, related to particle sizes and other factors, but the spectra offer an insight into surface composition. As with the colors, the observed spectra can fit a number of models of the surface. Water ice signatures have been confirmed on a number of Centaurs, including 2060 Chiron, 10199 Chariklo, and 5145 Pholus. In addition to the water ice signature, a number of other models have been put forward. Chariklo's surface has been suggested to be a mixture of tholins, like those detected on Titan and Triton, with amorphous carbon. Pholus has been suggested to be covered by a mixture of Titan-like tholins, carbon black, olivine, and methanol ice. The surface of 52872, Aurico, has been suggested to be a mixture of kerogens, olivines, and a small percentage of water ice. 8405 Asbolus has been suggested to be a mixture of 15% Triton-like tholins, 8% Titan-like tholin, and 37% amorphous carbon, and 40% ice tholin. Chiron appears to be the most complex. The spectra observed vary depending on the period of the observation. Water ice signature was detected during a period of low activity and disappeared during high activity. So some similarities to comets. Observation of Chiron in 1988 and 1989 near its perihelion found it to display a coma, a cloud classified as both a minor planet and a comet, although it is far larger than a typical comet, and there is some lingering controversy. Other Centaurs being monitored for comet-like activity so far are 60558 Echolink and 166P/NEAT have shown such behavior. 166P/NEAT was discovered while it exhibited a coma, and so it is classified as a comet, though its orbit is that of a Centaur. Echolink was discovered without a coma but recently became active, and so it too is now classified as both a comet and an asteroid. Overall, there are about 30 Centaurs for which activity has been detected, with the active population biased toward objects with smaller perihelion distances. And again, there's a list of notable Centaurs. We've already mentioned several. I'll go ahead and mention a few more. So we've mentioned 2060 Chiron, discovered in 1977, 5145 Pholus, discovered in 1992, 7066 Nessus, discovered in 1993, 8405 Asbolus, discovered in 1995, 10199 Chariklo, discovered in 1997, 10370 Hylonomy, discovered in 1995, 54598 Benor, discovered in 2000, and 55576 Amicus, discovered in 2002. So for some other information, it says see also asteroid and dwarf planet, and some references. You can also go out to the Royal Astronomical Society to find out more. You can also go to Scientific American. There are lots of references here on the Wikipedia page. So there's just a brief introduction to Centaurs. So does anybody have any questions or comments for this presentation? Are you interested in Centaurs, and do you have any interesting tidbits that you'd like to contribute to tonight's net? If so, please come now with your call sign. Not hearing anything, so I hope you enjoyed tonight's presentation. So this is KF5PDS Billye, your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. All right, next up is Was Up. So at this time, I will return the net to Chaz. KF5JHA, the net is yours from KF5PDS.
Thank you, Billy. Good evening once again, everyone. This is Chaz, KF5JHA. We call this segment of Skynet Was Up because it's all about what has gone on astronomically over the last couple of weeks and what will take place over the next couple of weeks and beyond. That was slide number 2. I'm talking about slides, and Billy's already told you about the YouTube version of Skynet, and that's where you can see the slides. Master slide number 3. Now, Bill, N5BB, he talked about Moon Day. Well, let me show you a couple of pictures from Moon Day. Moon Day was a week ago, and so I had a hard time getting slides in here about Moon Day last Skynet last week. So here's one picture. Slide Master, slide number 4. Here's a picture of the Apollo 7 capsule that's on display. Yep, the real Apollo 7 capsule right on display in the exhibit hall. And also National Space Society was there, and Bill talked about that. Slide Master, slide number 5. The Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas, and also the Dallas Amateur Radio Club tables and activities that were there. So it was well attended by at least participants and a lot of vendors and stuff. Love the little groups, yes. Slide Master, slide number 6. Now, I've talked about the predicted nova of star T Coronaborealis, which may erupt at any time. It is currently at a brightness of around 10th magnitude. I just checked a few minutes ago. That's where it is, which is much too faint to be seen with just your two eyes. T Corona Borealis was supposed to go nova about 2 years ago. Now, one recent prediction was for T Corona Borealis to go nova around June the 25th. According to my watch, that's already passed by a month, so that has not happened. But when T Corona Borealis does go nova, it could become as bright as the North Star, which is second magnitude. Now, I can see the North Star with just my two eyes from my very light-polluted location here in Mesquite, Texas. Slide Master, slide number 7. This image of the sun I got from spaceweather.com. It's probably image from Solar Dynamic Observatory, SDO, on July the 22nd. The large sunspot complexes on the sun are so large at times that you can just use your solar eclipse glasses to see them. And we had one sunspot that was just about that big this week. The sun has just passed its 11-year solar maximum, which we believe was around October of 2024. I presented information on the solar cycle about 6 months ago on Skynet. Slide Master, slide number 8. On July the 21st was the first quarter moon, so the current phase of the moon is a waxing gibbous. On July the 25th, oh wait, is that today? The moon is at apogee, which is the point in the moon's orbit that is furthest from the Earth at a distance of 405,548 kilometers. Full moon is on July the 29th. Third quarter moon is on August the 5th. On August the 10th, the moon is at perigee, which is the point in the moon's orbit that is closest to the Earth at a distance of 363,284 kilometers. Slide Master, slide number 9. On July the 24th, there's a conjunction of the moon and the bright star Antares that's in the constellation of Scorpius in the southern evening sky. Slide Master, slide number 10. On July the 29th, there's a conjunction of the moon and the planet Pluto in the southwestern morning sky. Now, Pluto cannot be seen with your two eyes, of course. Cannot be seen in binoculars, and you need a really moderate-sized telescope. And what you do is you look in the field of view. If you've got the right field of view, I'd use a star map to do that. Plot out all the little dots you see, then come back a couple of days later and see which one moved, and that was probably Pluto. That's what's the best you can do to find Pluto. I've only seen Pluto through a telescope a couple of times. Slide Master, slide number 11. Now, on the night of July the 29th and 30th is the peak of not one, not two, but 3 different meteor showers. The Alpha Capricorn meteor shower could produce around 5 meters per hour, but there's been recent predictions that there could be a meteor storm with it. The problem is the bright moon, 15 meters per hour. The July Gamma Draconis could produce about 10, sometimes up to 100 meters per hour. Now, usually the best time to observe meteors is the hour before dawn, because that's the side of the Earth that's running into the debris left behind by comets or asteroids. If you want to get to know more information about meteors and meteor showers, you can visit the IMO.net, that's the International Meteor Organization, or the American Meteor Society at amsmeteors.org. Slide Master, slide number 12. So, on August the 2nd, there's a conjunction of the moon and the planet Neptune in the morning sky. That would be the eastern sky. Neptune, you'll need a telescope to see it. Slide Master, slide number 13. On August the 3rd, there's a conjunction of the moon, Saturn, and Neptune in the eastern morning sky. The moon is close to Saturn, but Neptune's not too far away. Slide Master, slide number 14. On August the 4th, there's a conjunction of Mars, the asteroid series and the nebula. It's a planetary nebula. M1, nope, it's a supernova wet remnant. It's not a planetary nebula, it's a supernova wet remnant. M1 is also known as the Crab Nebula in the eastern morning sky. Could be interesting to look at all those things. You'll need a telescope to see the Crab Nebula. Slide master, slide number 15. On August the 7th, there's conjunction of the Moon, the planet Uranus, and M45 in the eastern morning sky. M45 is the Pleiades star cluster. You can see that with just your two eyes. Uranus, you'll probably need at least a pair of binoculars to observe. On slide master 16, that would be August the 9th. There's a conjunction of the Moon, Mars, Sirius, and once again, the Crab Nebula in the eastern morning sky. Okay, I'm going to give you a preview of something that's a month from now. Slide master, slide number 17. There is a lunar eclipse on the night of August the 27th and 28th. It's a partial lunar eclipse, but the moon goes 93% of the way into the umbra shadow of the Earth. The Earth has two different shadows. Lighter part of the Earth's shadow is called the penumbra. The darker part is called the umbra. It's going to go about 93% of the moon is going to be covered up by the umbra, the darker part. We'll give you more details as we get closer to that. And this is KF5JJ, and this is Skynet. Slide master, slide number 18. All right, do any of you out there in Radio Land have any questions? Or maybe need for a fill? Or maybe you just have a general astronomy question. My degree's in astrophysics, I might have an answer. Or someone else here on the net might have an answer to your question. Come now with your call sign if you have a question or need a fill. One of these nights we're going to have a Stump the Astronomer question, I hope. Slide master, slide number 19. So as the moon waned a couple of weeks ago, so do these words for this segment of Skynet. Stay safe, keep well, pray for our world. It's the only one where humans live right now. Until next time, well, actually, I'll be doing another segment on Skynet in a few minutes. Keep looking up so you know what's up. And this is KF5JJ, and this is Skynet, which is transmitting on the W5FC repeater in Dallas, Texas, at a frequency of 146.88 megahertz. Skynet, again, is also available on Echolink and YouTube. Back to our net control. It's yours, Billy.
Great. Thank you very much, Chaz. This is KF5PDS Billy, your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. All right, next up is space exploration and space history. So at this time, I will turn the net over to Gus, W5GUS. The net is yours from KF5PDS.
Okay, thank you, Billy. W5GUS here with space exploration and space history. We'll start with our in the more the merrier department. An Indian private aerospace startup, Skyroot Aerospace, successfully achieved the debut orbital launch of its Vikram 1 rocket, solidifying India's growing role in commercial small satellite launch services. That was on July 18th. On July 20th, the international space community celebrated the 50th anniversary of NASA's Viking 1 landing on Mars, which was July 20th, 1976. Viking 1 was the first spacecraft to successfully land on Mars and complete its mission, and transmitting the first close-up color photographs of the Martian surface. Okay, July 21st, SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket successfully launched the Mission Robotic Vehicle, or the MRV, carrying DARPA's Robotic robotic servicing of geosynchronous satellites, RSGS payload. And according to Wikipedia, DARPA is Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, and it's responsible for development of emerging technologies for use of our military. That launch represents the first privately owned operational robotic in-space servicing effort designed to inspect, repair, and extend the lifespan of satellites directly in geosynchronous orbit. All right, and some ISS news. International Space Station astronauts prepared for a major crew transition. The upcoming change of command ceremony, which happened today, the change of command ceremony, which happened today, saw NASA's astronaut Jessica Meir take command of Expedition 75. And while returning crew members from the ISS, Chris Williams, Sergei Severikov, and Sergei Makiev, they're preparing to depart the ISS aboard a Soyuz MS-28 tomorrow. Okay, and let's see, July 24th, SpaceX completed a test flight of its Starship mega rocket following an aborted launch attempt last week, in which several engines failed to ignite at liftoff. The test flight, called Flight 13, hit several key milestones before concluding with a controlled splashdown of the upper Starship spacecraft in the Indian Ocean. The Super Heavy rocket booster, which detached from Starship 2 minutes into the flight, made a controlled splashdown in our Gulf of Mexico. Okay, we'll move on to space-related birthdays. July 19th, 1965, Scott Tingle flew to the International Space Station aboard a Soyuz MS-07 in 2017, serving as a flight engineer for Expedition 5455. In 1940, Vladimir Levakyov was born. He was a Soviet cosmonaut who commanded long-duration missions to Soyuz 6 and 7 and Mir space stations, spending a total of 333 days in space. And in Russian, in English, the Russian word Mir means peace, P-E-A-C-E, peace. Okay, July 22nd, 1942, Toyohiro Akavama was born. He became the first Japanese citizen and the first professional journalist to fly in space, spending over 7 days aboard the Soviet Mir space station. Moving on to July 23rd, 1927, Elliot C. S-E-E was born. He was selected as one of NASA's Group 2 astronauts. He was designated command pilot for Gemini 9, but tragically died in a training jet crash months before launch. Okay, July 24th, 1955, Stephen Robinson born. He's a veteran of 4 space shuttle missions. During the STS-114 return to flight mission, he performed a historic spacewalk to repair the shuttle's heat shield. July 25th, 1932, Paul Witz, W-E-I-T-Z, Witz, was born. He piloted Skylab 2, the first crewed mission to the Skylab space station, and later commanded the maiden voyage of the Space Shuttle Challenger, which was STS-6. Also July 25th, but in 1957, Daniel Birch was born. A ham, KD5OPQ, the veteran of 4 space flights who spent 196 days in space during the ISS Expedition number 4, setting a record at that time. Okay, and the last birthday for this week, William Shepard, born July 26, 1949. He was a ham, KD5GSL. He commanded the Expedition 1, the historic first long-duration crewed mission to the ISS, establishing continuous human occupancy. Okay, this week in space history. July 19th, 1963, NASA research pilot Joseph Walker flew the North American X-15 rocket-powered aircraft to an altitude of about 65.8 miles. This milestone marked the first time a reusable piloted spacecraft crossed the internationally recognized 100-kilometer boundary of space, officially making Walker an astronaut under the international standards. Okay, you might have heard of this one. July 20th, 1969, Apollo 11 lunar module Eagle, carrying astronauts Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, successfully landed on the moon's Sea of Tranquility. Armstrong famously radioed to Earth, Houston, Tranquility Base here, Eagle has landed. A few hours later, Armstrong stepped onto the lunar surface, declaring, "That's one small step for a man, one giant leap for mankind," and was followed shortly after by Buzz Aldrin on the surface. Okay, back in 1961, astronaut Virgil Gus Grissom piloted the Mercury Redstone 4 spacecraft named Liberty Bell 7, on the United States' second crewed suborbital space flight. The mission lasted 15 minutes and 37 seconds, reaching an altitude of 118 miles. Following a successful splashdown in the Atlantic Ocean, the spacecraft's newly designed explosive hatch prematurely blew, causing the cabin to flood. Although Grissom was safely rescued by a helicopter, the spacecraft sank and was not recovered until about 30-some years later in 1999. The flight tested key spacecraft design improvements and pilot control systems and Gus Grissom's swimming ability, I guess. Okay, July 22nd, 1972, the Soviet Union's robotic probe Venera 8 successfully landed on the surface of Venus. It was only the second spacecraft to survive landing on the planet's extremely hostile surface, and during its descent and subsequent 50 minutes of transmission from the surface, it measured ambient temperature, pressure, and light levels, confirming that surface lighting was sufficient for future photography. It also utilized a gamma-ray spectrometer to perform the first chemical analysis of Venusian soil, showing it to be similar to terrestrial granite. July 23rd, 1999, NASA's Chandra X-ray Observatory was launched into orbit aboard the Space Shuttle Columbia. It was released into a high Earth orbit by the crew, which was commanded by Eileen Collins, the first female shuttle commander. Chandra was designed to detect X-ray emissions from extremely hot and energetic regions of the universe. Okay, a few years before that, July 25th, 1984, Soviet cosmonaut Svetlana Savitskaya became the first woman to perform an extravehicular activity, or spacewalk, in space. While stationed aboard the Salyut 7 space station, she spent 3 hours and 35 minutes outside the station alongside fellow cosmonaut Vladimir Dzhanhalbekov. Okay, and let's see, July 26, 1971, NASA launched the Apollo 15 mission aboard a Saturn V rocket. It carried astronauts David Scott, James Irwin, and Alfred Worden. This was the first of the J missions, which focused on extensive scientific exploration of the lunar surface. Apollo 15 was the first mission to employ the Lunar Roving Vehicle, LRV, allowing Scott and Irwin to traverse a much larger area of the region. The mission returned highly significant samples, including the famous Genesis rock, which was thought to be some of the original material of the moon, and deployed a suite of scientific instruments that were left on the surface. Okay, and that brings this week's episode of Space Exploration and News and Birthdays to an end. So we will pass things back to Billye and look forward to Chaz and some jokes and Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week. So back to you, Billye, from W5GUS.
Great, thanks, Gus. This is KF5TDS Billye, your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. All right, just checking our website. I don't see anybody else checked in. Just do a quick check-in round if there's anybody out there that would like to check into this evening's net that has not had a chance to do so. Please come now with your call sign name, where you're transmitting from.
Hello, this is Whiskey November 5, Romeo November Whiskey. This is Papa Alpha Tango Pat, transmitting mobile near DFW Airport. Hello, this is Kilo Juliet 5, Quebec Echo India, Patrick in Carrollton.
Okay, let me acknowledge those two. So we have Whiskey November 5, Romeo November Whiskey, Pat, mobile near DFW Airport, and Kilo Juliet 5, Quebec Echo India, Patrick from Carrollton. So welcome to Skynet. Do we have anyone else out there that would like to check into this evening's net? If so, please come now with your call sign name, where you're transmitting from.
This is Whiskey 5, Bacon, Lettuce, Tomato, W5BLT, Bill in Garland.
Whiskey 5BLT, Bill in Garland. Welcome to Skynet. All right, next up is Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week. So at this time, I will turn the net over to Chaz, KF5JHA. The net is yours once again from KF5PDS.
Thank you, Billy. Good evening once again. This is KF5JHA Chaz. Slide Master, slide number 20. Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week is named in honor of Silent Key, Carolyn, KC5OZT. Carolyn contributed to Skynet each week, almost from its beginning in 2012. Yep, we are in our 16th year of Skynet. She contributed from 2012 until May of 2019 with a detailed look at one particular constellation each week. Since there are about 52 easily visible constellations seen in Texas throughout the year out of the 88 total number of constellations, so Miss Carolyn covered the entire sky as seen over North Texas in a year. And in her honor, we've continued that tradition of a constellation each week and named this segment after her. Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week this week is Serpens, the snake. Now, quoting the Burnham Celestial Handbook, Serpens is the snake, which is the symbol of the divine healer. You know, they have that in medical stuff, you know, ancient Greek mythology. Who it appears as in the sky as Ophiuchus is the serpent bearer. We'll talk about that later on. Serpens is the only star group completely divided into two portions that are not connected. Serpens Club, the serpent's head, and the western part of Ophiuchus, and in the eastern part of the Ophiuchus is the serpent's tail. Slide Master, slide number 21, the jokes of the week. All right, now, for those of you on Echolink and on YouTube, you can sit there and comment on the jokes. The rest of you, I guess, have to just suffer and wait. Don't throw things at your radio, please. Don't do that. All right, so here we go. What is a snake's favorite school subject? History. What do you call a snake that's exactly 3.14 feet long? Oh, come on. We have a mathematician that's our net control tonight. She should figure this out. It's called a python. Why can't you play jokes on a snake? Because you can never pull their legs. What do you call a snake without any clothes? It would be naked. What do you call a hypothetical situation where a snake chases an Asian from point A to point B? The Python-Korean theorem? That was a stretch, wasn't it? Why can't snakes rob a bank? Because they're unarmed. Oh, wait, and there's one more bonus one. What snake do you use to clean your windshield wipers? Oh, wait, it's a windshield wiper. Oh, no, it's a windshield viper. Okay, slide master, slide number 22. Alpha Serpens. The name of the star is the Serpent's Neck, which marks the star's location in the Serpens. The star is an optical triple star with two faint visual companions. In an 8-inch telescope, the primary looks yellow-white in color. Delta Serpentis is a double star, and an 8-inch telescope at 126 power splits nicely in when seeing settles down. The primary looks white, while the secondary looks sort of a yellow-white, but this may only be an illusion because of the brightness difference in the two stars. Slide master, slide number 23. Messier object number M5 is the bright globular star cluster in there. When you think of globular star clusters, you often think of M13 and Hercules. M13 is certainly better known than M5, but Walter Scott Houston pointed out an interesting paradox in his Deep Sky Wonders column. It may come as a surprise to learn that M5 is actually listed as being a tenth of a magnitude brighter than M13 in the Sky Catalog of 2000. Both M13 and M5 are similar in size, too. In fact, M5 is the brightest star cluster in the northern hemisphere of the sky, and indeed, it surpasses only two southern globular star clusters, M47 Tucani and the Omega Centauri. M5 is visible to the naked eye under dark sky conditions. In an 8-inch telescope, M5 is nicely framed and resolves well at 126 power. Slide master, slide number 24. M16 is the Eagle Nebula, or the Star Queen Nebula. In spite of its popular name of the Eagle Nebula, M16 is not just a nebula. It also includes an associated open star cluster of stars. When you look at M16 in a telescope, the cluster is what you would usually notice first. The nebula itself is much harder to make out in smaller telescopes. And this is KF5JJ, and this is Skynet. Slide master, slide number 25. There's a few more Astronomical League program observing objects in the constellation of Serpens, the Snake. In fact, I have spent an entire evening looking at, there's several more star clusters and much more to look at in that constellation. Good constellation. I've just given you a sampling of some of those objects. The Astronomical League has, at last count, I was just corrected on the number of them, there's 177 different observing programs, most of which have around 100 objects. You can observe, if you observe just 10 different objects in an observing program each month, then you can earn an observing certificate and a pen from the Astronomical League in about a year. And slide master, slide number 26, that is Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week, Serpens the Snake. I want to thank my friends Dave Hutchinson and Dennis Harwell for the research and words on deep sky objects that I use, borrow, and steal for every Skynet. I also use a website at times, constellation-guide.com, for information. Now next week, I'll take a look at the snake handler, Ophiuchus. Well, of course, in Texas, I think we call it the snake wrangler. Yeah. This is KF5JJ Jazz saying good night in 73. Back to our net control. Billye, KF5PDS, it's all yours.
Thank you very much, Chaz. This is KFI-PDS Billye, your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. All right, next up is a twofer, space launches for the week and satellite passages, which will both be handled by Tom. So at this time, I will turn the net over to Tom, KE5ICX. The net is yours. And just hand the net back to me when you're done with your segment from KF5-PDS.
Well, thank you. This is KE5ICX, and here's what we have for space launches for this week. We have, let's see here, July 27, 28th, we have a Starlink launch 17-52. This one from Vandenberg, SLC-4 Echo. Falcon 9 rocket will launch another batch of 24 Starlink V2 mini satellites into low Earth orbit. The first stage will return for the 26th time to drone ship Of Course I Still Love You. July 30th, Falcon 9 will launch an NROL 95. This is from SLC-40 at Cape Canaveral in Florida. This is a classified payload for the National Reconnaissance Office. The NROL 95 mission was awarded to SpaceX in August of 2024 for the National Security Space Launch NSSL Phase 2 contract. First stage booster, launching for the 7th time, will return to Landing Zone 2 at Cape Canaveral. Spectrum will launch onward and upward, the date being, it says to be determined. There is a window that opens, but no date. That's interesting. I'll read the description anyway. This is from Andøya Spaceport, Norway. The Spectrum rocket from Iser Aerospace will launch its second test flight. The two-stage rocket is carrying 5 CubeSats on board. I won't name them all. These are all universities and institutions. The final payload, let's see here. EXO Launch is responsible for managing payload integration and deployment. Boy, do they have to when they got 6 payloads, and I think they've had as many as up to 40. We have coming up on August 1st, Falcon 9 Starlink 17-53. This one will be from SLC-4E at Vandenberg. Again, 24 Starlink V2 mini satellites will launch into low Earth orbit. The first stage booster will be launching for the 34th time, 3-4, is scheduled to land on the drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You, in the Pacific Ocean. Then August 27th, we have the Ariane 6. This will be a heavy. MTG-I-2 will launch from Europe's spaceport Conroe in French Guiana. The Ariane 62 rocket with the 2-booster variant of the Ariane 6 launcher will launch the second Meteosat third-generation imager satellite into geostationary transfer orbit. The mission is a partnership between the European Space Agency and EUMETSAT. It will be the 4th Ariane 6 rocket launch of the year and the 9th to date. Then finally, August 30th will be a Falcon Heavy launch. This will be with, are you ready for this, the Nancy Grace Roman Space Telescope. This will launch from Launch Complex 39A at Kennedy Space Center. The Heavy will launch NASA's Nancy Grace Roman Space Telescope, the agency's next great observatory. Roman carries on board 2 main instruments, a 300-megapixel infrared camera called the Wide Field Instrument, and a coronagraph. It will carry out a minimum 5-year mission, capture detailed images of the universe at a dramatically faster rate than of the Hubble Space Telescope, even with a primary mirror that's the same size as Hubble's. So this sounds very interesting. Probably need to bone up on information on it because it's that interesting. Okay, let's see here. We have visible satellite passages coming up. Let me go ahead and pull that information up. The International Space Station has several passes that are quite good. The next one will be minus 2.5 magnitude west. It'll reach its highest point at 2229 at 33 degrees, and then it'll go into shadow at that same altitude at 33 degrees. Next is July 27th, minus 3.6 magnitude. This one is at 2138 out of the northwest. It'll reach its highest point at 61 degrees at 2142, and it'll fall to the southeast at 2143. So that's a good full pass. The next one, following evening, minus 3.5 magnitude at 2051. It'll reach its highest point at 61 degrees at 2054, and it'll fall to the southeast at 2057. July 29th, the following evening, minus 1.4 magnitude at 2141. It'll reach its highest point at 18 degrees at 2143, and it'll fall to the south at 2145. Then finally, July 30th, minus 2.3 magnitude, also around the same time, 2052 in the evening. It'll reach its highest point at 33 degrees at 2055, and it'll fall to the south-southeast at 2059. So over the next few days, we have some really good passes in the evening, mid-evening, about 9 o'clock our time. So go on out and take a look. All this information is available from heavens-above.com. Just plug in your longitude, latitude information or your closest city that you're near, and it will spit out all of this information for you. They also have additional complete information on amateur radio satellites going over, as well as a 3D rendering of the International Space Station, which you can look at from all angles, and it is the same basic simulated view that you would see as an astronaut if you were on board the space station in real time. That's it, Billy. Back to you. This is KE5ICX.
Great. Thank you very much, Tom. This is KF5PDS Billy, your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. All right, so we are close to the end of the net. We're at Astronomical Q&A. Does anyone out there have any questions? Let's just check in the club website check-in. I don't see anybody new checked in there. but I'll go ahead and take final round of check-ins before we do our 73 round. So if you're out there and you would like to check in for this evening's net, please come now with your call sign name, where you're transmitting from. Not hearing anybody, so we'll go ahead and ask if there are any checked-in stations that have any remarks or questions. Does anyone need any fills? Okay, not hearing anything, so I'll go ahead and wrap up the net. Tonight we had 18 hams participating on the air. Thanks to all who checked in this evening. We hope you'll join us here next week and every Saturday night at 9 p.m. to discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration. On this net, the sky is never the limit. We're always looking for net control stations for this and all the other DARC nets. If you'd like to try your hand at this, contact any of the net controls by sending an email to nets@w5fc.org. You can follow topics and discussion about this net and astronomy in general on Facebook and X, as well as our audio and video streams, video archives, and other useful internet resources by going to w5fc.org at the conclusion of this net. So until next Saturday night, this is KFI PDS Billye. I'll be closing the net at 22:26 local time and returning the repeater to normal amateur use. 73 everybody, and enjoy the evening discovering the universe. And remember, following this evening's net is the Afterglow movie net, where the movie for discussion will be Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind from 2004. 73 everybody.
Thank you, Billye, and we'll be back in about 5 minutes. 5 minutes. You had enough time to make some microwave popcorn. Come back, and we'll be talking about Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind from 2004. 5 minutes.
Normal state.
completely operational, and all my circuits are functioning perfectly.
Afterglow movie net. All right, it's time to come back and bring your microwave popcorn. And we're going to be talking about tonight's movie, a film I was not aware of, and I don't think a lot of other people were, but it has a cult following. Apparently, a lot of people have seen this film and loved it. It's called Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind from 2004. It stars Jim Carrey and Kate Winslet. And it's an interesting story. I've got Wikipedia up here. Let me tell you a little bit about it and what they say. It's 2004 American science fiction romantic comedy drama. Do all those things go together? I guess they do. Film directed by Michelle Gondry. Charlie Kaufman is a story by Gondry Kaufman and Pierre Bismuth. It stars Jim Carrey and Kate Winslet as a couple who undergo memory erasure after they break up. It also has Kirsten Dunst, Mark Ruffalo, Elijah Wood, and Tom Wilkinson also appear in supporting roles. The title of the film is a quotation from the 1717 poem Elogia to Abelard by Alexander Pope, not Pope Alexander, which I think is one of the jokes in the story. It uses elements of psychological drama and science fiction and the nonlinear narrative to explore the nature of memory and love. Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind premiered in Los Angeles on March 9, 2004, was released in theaters in the United States by Focus Pictures on March 19th to widespread acclaim from critics who praised the script and the direction. The film was a box office success, grossing $73.3 million on a $20 million budget, and was named by the American Film Institute one of the top 10 films of 2004. At the 77th Academy Awards, Bismuth, Gondry, and Kaufman won Best Original Screenplay, and Winslet received a nomination for Best Actress. The film has been named by several publications as one of the greatest of 20th 21st century and gained a cult following. It inspired music projects such as Jay Electronica's 2007 piece, Eternal Sunshine, The Pledge, and Gianni Acchio's 2014 track, Spotless Mind, and Ariana Grande's 2024 album, Eternal Sunshine. The plot description is fairly short, so I'll just go ahead and read it for those who did not see the film. It says, Joel Barish discovers his estranged girlfriend, Clementine Krasinski, has undergone a procedure to have her memories of him erased by a suburban Long Island firm called Lacuna. Heartbroken, he decides to undergo the same procedure. In preparation, he records a tape recording his memories of their volatile relationships. The employees work on Joel's brain as he sleeps in his apartment so that he will wake up with no memory of the procedure. One employee, Patrick, leaves to see Clementine since her procedure. He's been using Clementine's memories of Joel as a guide to seduce her. While the procedure runs on Joel's brain, the technicians Stan and the secretary Mary take drugs, party, and have sex. Joel re-experiences his memories of Clementine in reverse chronological order as they are erased, starting from their last fight. As he reaches earlier, happier memories, he realizes he does not want to forget her. His mental projection of Clementine suggests he hides her in memories that do not involve her. This halts the procedure, but Stan calls his boss, Howard, who arrives and restarts it. Joel comes to his last remaining memory of Clementine the day they first met on the beach on Montauk. As the memory crumbles around them, Clementine tells Joel to meet her in Montauk. In Joel's apartment, Mary tries to impress Howard through their mutual interest in poetry by reciting a verse from Eloisa to Abelard. While Stan is outside, she tells Howard she's in love with him, and they kiss. Howard's wife arrives and sees them both through the window. Enraged, she tells Howard to tell Mary the truth. Mary and Howard have previously had an affair, and Mary had her memories of it erased. Disgusted, Mary steals the records and mails them to the patients, including Joel and Clementine. Joel wakes up on Valentine's Day with his memories of Clementine erased. He impulsively takes the Long Island Railroad to Montauk and calls in sick to work. He accidentally meets Clementine on the train ride home. They are drawn to one another and go on a date to the frozen Charles River in Boston. Joel drives Clementine home, and Patrick sees the two of them, realizing that they found each other again. Joel and Clementine receive their records from Mary and listen to their tapes together. They are shocked by the bitter memories they had of each other and almost pray again, but then agree to try again, and the film ends. All right, well, yes, romantic comedy, I guess, with some really interesting special effects along the way, too, for 2000 and... what year was this? For 2004 film, rather impressive, I will say. As well as some practical effects they did that didn't cost anything at all. So, this is how we play this game. We go ahead and take check-ins with your call sign name and where you're transmitting from. And we ask if you've seen the film. The next thing we do is talk about the movie's plot. Second round, we do characterization and acting. Third round is special effects and anything we missed on the first two rounds or something that has come to anyone along the way. If you haven't seen the film, that's perfectly okay. We'll ask you if it's one that you would like to see, or if it reminds you of something that you've seen, or a film that maybe you would like to recommend that you particularly like. Everyone is welcome here, whether you've seen the film or not. So don't be shy. You're more than welcome to check in, and we won't grill you too much on any particular movie or any particular thing. So let's go ahead and get started. I will take check-ins. Please come with your call sign, hopefully phonetically. Your name, and did you see tonight's movie called Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind from 2004? Here we go.
This is N5BD, November 5, Bravo, Bravo, Bill and Irving. I've only watched the first half of the movie because I was so busy earlier today at the Space Day at the museum in Fort Worth. So I listened to the first half of your synopsis and then purposely turned the audio down so I couldn't hear the rest of it. Because I figured that skipping ahead to the last half of the movie is going to be meaningless on this kind of movie. So I'm going to turn off the radio now and watch it rather than listening. Sorry, in 5BB. Oh, and by the way, I like what I saw so far in 5BB.
I'll check in more quickly.
Charlie Mike, I did not see the movie, and after hearing the description, if I had seen the movie, I would be looking for some way to delete it from my memory other than drinking heavily, which is how most people erase memories. KI5JCM.
Is November Tango 5. Tango Mike, Tony and Dallas. Yes, Aaron and I have seen the entire movie more than once.
November Victor 5 Foxtrot, Virginia in Fort Worth. Yes, I saw the movie.
Kilo Juliet 5, Papa Golf for November. Wow, what a great film.
All right, we'll start there. Let me see here. I'm going to get Echolink here in just a second. I've got inside BD Bill. He is watching the movie, so I don't know if we'll have him on the next round or not. I'll figure that one out in a little bit. The next call, I think I got. My audio is a little shaky tonight. I think it's Kilo Echo 5, Juliet Tango Mike. Is that correct, or have I mangled it so it's almost incomprehensible? And if you give me your correct call, your name, and whether you saw the film. I think you said you did, but it wasn't your cup of tea, more like scotch.
So apparently you deleted your memory of my call sign. No, Kilo India 5, Juliet, Charlie, Mike, Thomas, and Grapevine. I did not see the movie, and now that I've heard that plot description, I am very grateful I did not see that movie.
Okay, I got you. KI5JCM, Thomas. Well, let's stick around and listen, and if you've got a movie suggestion, think about it, and we'll probably put it on the list if we can find it. You may change your mind. I'm not sure. We'll give the discussion. I liked it. I wasn't sure about it at first, but then it grew on me. Next up, NT5TM, Tony in Dallas. Yes, he and Aaron saw that movie. ND5F, Virginia in Fort Worth. Yes, she saw it. Next person I've got is KJ5 Papa Golf November, I think. I don't have a name or a location. You did see the movie and you liked it. Could I get your name, please?
KJ5 PGN, my name is Gregory. I am in Fort Worth. Exactly. I'm right by A20 and Highway 30 in Fort Worth. And I literally just finished watching the movie.
You did like the film, so great. I can hardly wait to hear what you have to say. Let me go ahead and ask if there's anyone else over here, and then I'm going to go to Echolink because I think we have somebody there. Anyone else want to check in? Please come with your call sign, name, and did you see tonight's movie, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind?
Kilo Bravo 9, Sierra Kilo, Sean Fort Worth. Yes, I did see this movie. All right, we picked up KB9S OK. That would be Sean over in Fort... Boy, we got a lot of folks from Fort Worth tonight. I'll now open it up to Echolink. I see a couple of people there. One may want to check in, maybe both. If you're on Echolink and would like to join us, please come with your call sign name. Did you see tonight's movie, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind? Echolink or All-Star Link. Okay, maybe not. I'll poke them a little bit here in a little bit while people are talking. I'll check them on chat, see if they're interested. All right, at the top of the list is Bill. He's watching the movie and turning the radio off for now, but I will come back to him on the next round. Thomas, you've not seen the film, but I'm going to go ahead and put an asterisk by your name, and we will come back to you here in the second round and see what you think based on comments, whether you still feel the same way or not. You might, and there's nothing wrong with that. Romantic comedies aren't necessarily my favorites either. Okay, so the first person who has seen the movie several times, no less, is Tony. We'll start with him, NT5TM. Tony, your thoughts on Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind from 2004 from KE5ICX.
Well, I am a little frustrated because when I heard Bill check in, I thought, oh, wonderful, I don't have to be first. But then he said he hadn't finished it and I didn't want any spoilers. Arg. So he probably can't hear me, but I don't have a lot of spoilers to say about the plot. In general, I am sick of non-linear movies. There was some movie Aaron and I saw that was a satire in which a production assistant was bringing the script for what was supposed to be, I think, Pulp Fiction to the producers, and he kept dropping it over and over again and not putting the pages back in the right order. And that was the only explanation for why that movie wasn't in order. I think this movie and Memento are the only two movies where I'm not bothered by out-of-order storytelling. Because this movie is about the destruction of memory, which is absolutely terrifying. It's a lot less violent than vampires, but it's absolutely terrifying. It's okay to go out of order. When something bad happens to our brains, we can't tell what order that will happen in, what parts it will get. I had a cousin who got surgery for horrible epileptic seizures, and the result was he couldn't operate a computer or remember his passwords anymore, but the seizures persisted. So you lose part of your brain. You never really know what's going to happen. Aaron and I went so far as to buy a book that had the original screenplay in it. She was really interested in this because the plot ultimately is about like what makes us who we are. Is it just the memories? Is it just the events? You know, if I forgot the periodic table or the small angle approximations for the sine of an angle, would I still be me? And this movie answers a resounding yes by means of its plot. It shows that even despite these really slapdash, this is even worse than The Company and Total Recall, attempts to erase people's memories and cause brain damage, hey, just let it go on autopilot. There is something underneath it all. It could be taste, it could be character, it could be habits, it could be just, tall people sometimes play basketball, or if they're in the Netherlands, they take up speed skating. Just the things we're naturally inclined to do. There is something more to us than just our memories. that is the answer the plot wants to deliver to all of us, and it does so very well, and the nonlinear storytelling in this rare case works extremely well and doesn't bother me. I'm really happy about the message it hits home. That, you know, if I forget my grocery list, I'm still human, I'm still me. It's more than just these things that can be casually erased by people who smoke pot while they do brain surgery, that, you know, we still have a character or something underneath all that. So that was, to me, the message of the plot, and to Aaron, we loved the way that it seemed to be like a karma loop. You know, it's not instant karma that's going to get you. It may take years, but it's going to come back. And I found the plot really kind of inspiring. I enjoyed the movie. I hope people who are dubious about it, I wish Bill could hear this, would go ahead and finish it. NT5TM.
All right, thank you, Tony, and good synopses, personal comments. I like that. Next up is Virginia, NV5F. Virginia, welcome back. What did you think of this film from KE5ICX?
Hey, Tom. Thank you so much. And first, I will begin by complimenting your audio level. It is the best I think I've ever heard it on here. So I don't know what you did to improve it from the troubles you were having before, but it's now working great. Okay, the plot for this movie. Yeah, I'm with Tony. I generally don't like nonlinear plots just for the sake of being nonlinear and artsy. And when this movie started, it had that artsy art house feeling that I think a lot of people have imitated since then, and they're still trying to imitate it. And it's not really my favorite like vibe for a film, with the real dry audio and the real scant amount of music, and it felt at first like it could be one of those movies that was just trying to be artsy, but if you give it a chance and you get all the way through it, your brain can kind of put together the order everything is supposed to be in, and it's very interesting in that the whole opening sequence is actually what happens right before the very end of the movie. And then after, when the credits begin, that's actually kind of the middle of the story, which is right after Clementine has dumped Joel, and he doesn't know why, and then he finds out a little ways in that she's erased him from her memory, and then he decides to, after investigating, finding out from friends of his that he wasn't supposed to find out from, then he goes and asks what's going on, and then he decides, well, he's so brokenhearted, he's going to do the same thing, and yeah, and then this one's hard to categorize. I don't really think it's science fiction. It's not really fantasy. It's not really a romantic comedy. It's not really very funny. It's absurd. I would call it like absurdist melodrama, maybe. The memory, the whole memory erasing thing is absurd. Number one, who would have the technology to do that? Number two, who would want to do that? You know, number three, how could they actually get away with doing that to so many people and it not, you know, being obvious what's going on all over the place? How would they, you know? And then just the people that worked there were a bunch of schmoes who, like, were very unprofessional, and but I stuck with it, and I wasn't sure. I figured I'd make it to the end because there wasn't anything in it that was just like too violent, or, you know, there was some sexual content that wasn't my favorite, but it's, you know, I'm grown up enough to deal with that kind of stuff, and it wasn't, none of it was ever like just over the top, and some of the things in it were kind of tacky, but it was absurdist. It was, but it made a really good point about the fact that we, even if there's something horrible that's happened to us that we don't want to remember, Joel got a little ways through what he was going through, and even while he was having his memory removed, figured out what was going on even while he was, under in the sedated state while they erased his memory, and he decided, that was a stupid thing to do, and then you figure out at the beginning where Clementine was attracted to him was actually when they were finding each other again after both being erased from each other. So, I thought it was cool. It made a good point, and I'm glad I stuck around to the end of it, and I actually ended up liking it a lot more than I thought I would, because it's not really my style as far as, the kind of movie it is and the artsiness. Some of the way they lit it and stuff looked like a student film. But that was when he was in the in the altered state, having his memory erased, and so the lighting was all weird, and it was like a bad dream. The whole thing was, that sequence especially was just lit like a bad dream and felt like a bad dream, and they did it very effectively. It was the kind of movie where I feel like I could sit through it again and get what it's trying to say a little bit better. But I think the point it made was that people really are we're all kind of a mess or a mixed bag, and you kind of have to accept somebody the way they are and the way you perceive them, or the recordings where they were talking, they were hearing each other's tapes, about the complaints they had about justifying why they wanted their memory erased, and realizing that those reactions, his reaction to her and her reaction about him and what kind of a person he was, and all that, and then his reaction to her and what kind of person she was really just their sort of emotional recoil to each other's, how different each other's personality was. It was just a good kind of way to look at relationships. I really thought it turned out good, and the non-linearity of it makes sense and works for the story, and isn't just to be different or be artsy or keep the audience on their back foot or anything. It really was. There's a point to it in the end, and very strange feeling movie. Not something I'd probably go to an awful lot, but something I'll probably be interested in seeing again someday. Back to net in B5F.
All right, very good, Virginia. Thank you for your comments. Yeah, as far as what I did was I did update my All-Star Link node here to the latest and greatest version, reset all of the audio levels, and put everything back the way it was. Apparently, I'm not quite sure why audio is the way it is. I've played with it, but after you all said that it was much better last week, I left that alone, but I did tweak the All-Star Link a little bit with the new version, and maybe all those things together made it better. Hopefully, I won't mess it up and make it worse in any way, shape, or form. Okay, very good, thank you. Next up is Gregory, KJ5PGN. Gregory, you saw the film. What did you think of the plot from KE5ICX?
So I just finished watching the film, and I absolutely loved it. I actually plan on adding it to my personal collection. Unfortunately, I could relate to the character, as I myself am a recovered alcoholic, and I understand the blackout moments. So it kind of really hit home for me, and I really enjoyed the film. It was really good. It's definitely going to my DVD collection.
All right, thank you, Gregory. And just on this net, when you're done with your comments, just end with your call sign. Then we know you're finished with the comment on that particular transmission. Excellent. Glad you liked the film. I felt very much the same way. Thanks. Next up is Sean, KB9SOK. Sean, your thoughts on our movie Plotwise from KE5ICX.
Yeah, this is KB9SOK. Well, I will say that I think I had similar feelings as everybody else. I had some real concerns at the beginning of it as well. This was giving me vibes of the Truman story that we watched a few weeks back. Just because, you know, we had this little bit of odd sense of humor. And it almost felt like it was directed by the same person to some extent. So I was a little concerned about it. But I do think this one was much better done. As it went on, you know, I did start to enjoy it more. I agree this was, you know, there's been one other movie, and I tried to find it a few minutes ago, that had a very similar plot line where they erased people's memory that had bad relationships, and the consequences of that, how it altered their personalities. And I couldn't find it, but I know I've seen this before, or this concept. But yeah, no, I agree too that with Virginia about this technology. If this technology existed, the government would gobble it up instantly. They wouldn't be letting some guy just sell this on the street. They'd be using it for government uses. Yeah, if there was such thing. So the whole thing's kind of out there, but it was just a plot device to talk about relationships and how it affects us. And more than anything out of the story is kind of what I got out of it, was that, you know, at the end of the day, even if you were to remove a relationship, yes, these are things that teach us. After all, you know, you should learn from your mistakes and what you've done wrong. And obviously with each relationship, you learn something from it. And if you erase it, well, then you're destined to repeat those mistakes or repeat it. As we've seen with the Kristen Dunst's character, you know, she'd already cheated with the doctor, and even though she had that erased, she still had that baseline tendency because she still liked him, you know, because that was never gotten rid of. So, you know, she slowly kind of fell in love with the guy again and repeated the exact same mistake. So, yes, we will repeat our mistakes if we don't learn from them. If you have them erased, you can't learn from them. So that was one of the big things I got from this. And kind of the same thing even with our main characters. Obviously, even though their memories have been erased, you know, they come across each other again and instantly had that weird chemistry that brought them together. And then obviously, even despite all the bad things that they found out that they said about each other, they were still interested in each other. Overall, yes, I did like this movie. I'm not sure that I would watch it again. I did think it was hard to follow. I was fine with the out of order on this one like everybody else. I do think it was decent. My only complaint with this was, once again, I don't felt that the comedy part and the weirdness was needed. And then just the weirdness of the employees that worked there. I get why they needed the guy to become obsessed with Clementine. That made sense. But why we had the goofy technician and even, you know, why they were acting the way they were, like they're complete goofs. And then, you know, obviously the Jim Carrey character, which actually he was very, you know, even though there's a little bit of comedy, he actually held back more than anybody else. So I actually liked this performance better than his one in Truman. And then, you know, I thought Kate Winslet, once again, I'm not really doing characterization, I'm talking about the comedy part. Her character was supposed to be a loop, which is part of this story. And I thought that was, you know, was fine. But once again, I don't know that it needed the comedy that it needed. I think it could have been better without it. But overall, I liked it. Back to net. KB9SOK.
All right,
right, thank you, Sean. Well, we've got some thumbs up on this one. That's great. I agree. I'm going to save my comments for later. I do have Billye. She has checked in KF5 PBS over Echolink. So, Billye, did you see the film? And if you did, go ahead and tell us about what you think about the plot from KE5ICX.
KI5JCM comment.
Thomas, go ahead. I'm not sure what's up with Billye. Go ahead.
I'm going to say, I remembered why this movie suddenly, there were some emotions, and it took a while for the memory to catch up. Yeah, Jim Carrey's a dick. Like, I know people who have worked with him that want to get a restraining order on him, not because of anything he did, but because they're scared if they ever get close proximity, the urge to smack him and overpower them. This was the movie he made after someone with actual talent, Robin Williams, did a couple of serious films. And, well, Jim Carrey's ego couldn't take that, so this was a personal ego project. It amounts to two toxic people that shouldn't be together, blah, blah crap thrown in, they don't learn anything, and as the scriptures say, like a dog returning to its vomit, so fool returns to his folly. Yeah, I remember seeing the ads for this thing and just going, ugh. Robin Williams had talent. Jim Carrey is just irritating and a lousy quality human being. I think they'd have been far better spending $20 million on a script called More Talented People Shock Jim Carrey and the Generals. That I would take good money to watch. Anyway, that's my thoughts. KI5JCM back to net control.
All right, well, thank you, Thomas. Billye, KF5 PDS, are you there?
Yeah, sorry I missed the call out earlier. I was in another room. I didn't see the film, so I don't have any comments tonight. I'm just going to listen. KF5 PDS, back to net.
All right, that's the way it's played. Even if you haven't seen the film, you're welcome to check in, and Billye did. Does anyone else want to check in this evening? Please come to your call sign name, and did you see tonight's movie, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind? Okay, hearing none, I'll go ahead and make my comments before we go to the next round. I did like this film. I thought that Jim Carrey, and we'll talk about the acting here on the next round, actually was very reserved in this. He let the other characters shine some, and I had no problems with that. I thought the topic was very good. I liked it. It took a little while for me to kind of settle into kind of getting an idea of what was going on. I thought that the first scene that we saw before the credits ran, and by the way, this is the longest pre-credit roll I have ever seen in a movie, well, with the exception of maybe Star Wars that had it at the very end, but it was quite interesting to watch. What we were seeing was at the very last part of the movie, as Virginia had mentioned, or maybe Tony did, I don't know, both, maybe both, which was quite interesting. I thought that was, when the one character came up, the one from, that worked for the company, asked him if he was okay out of the blue. He didn't know who he was. obviously, at that point, we were led to believe something was up. We were missing things. And if you weren't aware that the film was a discombobulated state, it was all mixed up, that would certainly key you in to believe something was missing from this guy's memory right away. And if you hadn't read the plot synopses or some part of it to lead you to know that, it would certainly be a curious Twilight Zone moment for the audience. And that is indeed how it started out and how it began. The selective memory part I thought was interesting. I put a note down when folks were talking. The things that trigger memory, like taste and smell, act as locations and things like that work in a certain way. And of course, people, which are highly interactive versions of all those things, certainly mean that. And this storyline suggests that even though memory is altered or changed or different, we remain our core selves. And I think that's probably very true. You know, when you go back and you think about kind of things that we did when we were younger, I'm now 68 years old, which surprises the hell out of me. I never thought I'd make it that long. And thinking about what I was doing 30 years ago, you know, at 38, and 40 years ago at 28, and 50 years ago when I was 18, all of those events seem like they were yesterday, yet the way I acted and reacted to those, I was even thinking about things. And when I read it, you know, a common comment is that we all have is that I made it to adulthood. I did so many stupid things when I was growing up. But the way we act and react to things based on our maturity doesn't change us. It just means that we are more maybe understanding of situations, more cautious in certain regards. We don't get ourselves killed. Experiences have shown good, bad, and the ugly, so we may augment certain things to make things better and reduce others. But in the end, when it comes to human relationships, we still have a tendency to be attracted to certain people and certain personality types because that's what we resonate with for whatever reason. It may be biological, it may be evolutionary, it may be experiential. But in all ways, I think this movie kind of brought that out. And I really rather liked it. I thought it was interesting. I love the way this thing was brought together. I don't mind movies that take and mix things around. I kind of have to be prepared for that. If I'm tired, I'm not going to do well in a movie like that. I'm probably going to get lost. I may even turn it off. I may fall asleep. But if I'm fully awake and ready and willing to go on a haphazard, mixed-up journey like that, I'm willing to do it. And I don't mind it. This movie did a really good job with that. Let me reset. I thought for a movie, and this actually falls into the technical aspect on round 3, but I got to say it because it provides the mix-up and the way the scenes actually literally disintegrate and reintegrate and change and dissolve and all those things really made for a palette of interesting visuals. And I think the person who directed this had done music videos and that, so I think that in some ways that was a big help in a movie like this, but I rather liked it. I liked that the story went on in sort of this novelistic dream sequence way that helped to, when the relationship is starting to go bad, you can see the house literally disintegrating, flashbacks that would suggest that there was something there and now there's nothing, yet the personality remains the same even though the person is so much older and not a child anymore. Things like this, it provided sort of a visual narrative along with the actual dialogue, which really helped the film quite a bit. Now, having seen the film now all the way to the end and now knowing how the story plays out, this one is definitely one of those, and pay even more attention to the first part of the film, which I was still trying to understand after seeing the second part of the film, and probably appreciate how we get there in this crazy, roundabout, weird way. It definitely would make a second viewing worthwhile. Will I do it right away? Like Virginia suggested, maybe not right away, but I will give it a rest, set it aside, and I'll come back to it. I agree with the critics. I thought it was a very good film, and I think that because this is a character-driven movie, the performances held up extremely well against all of the discombobulated plot and the visuals that went along with it. It worked. It just worked. I rather liked it. All right. Well, that's my thoughts on the plot story. Let's go up to the top. I'm going to check in and see if Bill is finished with the movie yet and see if he responds. So we'll start with Bill, N5DB. Bill, you done with the movie? Okay, I think he's still watching. Thomas gave his comments on his thoughts, and that's fine. Not every movie and every actor is palatable. I had my issues with, who is it I'm thinking of, a particular actor. Well, one of the ones that Jerry Lewis drives me freaking crazy. Of course, he's gone now, but I can't watch more than 5 minutes of that guy. Even though people think he's a comic genius, maybe he is, that's fine, I don't mind, but at the same time, I can only take him in very small doses. All right, we'll now go on to characterization and acting. So this one involves our characters here. I guess there's about 7 of them. Tony, NT5TM, what do you say about characterization from KE5 ICX?
Well, good evening again. Now, I would like to say good things about characterization, but with an apology. I did have trouble with some of these characters' names, although I did really like that the guy who works for the Memory Erasing Company tried to convince Clementine that her nickname was Tangerine. It made me think of the Flaming Lips. And I'd actually forgotten until he said that Clementine is also a fruit. So, I don't know. I found that mildly amusing. Not important, but it brought a small smirk to my face. So, well, I could not always remember their names. I found the characters very strong and well-defined. They were expressive. Some of the acting was just, near the end of the movie when people are hitting some notes of despair, film acting just, to me, a non-actor, seems so incredibly difficult. Because, in a play, you're there on stage perhaps for 2 or 3 hours, you know what's going to happen next. Movies are shot out of order, and you could go right from scene 102, you're falling in love with your 16-year-old sweetheart, to scene 405, you cut her throat and offer her soul up to Satan. And you have to, nail the facial expressions for both scenes, perhaps 5 minutes apart. So I was so impressed with just how human the actors were. They made their characters very, very natural. I'll comment on the effects in the third round, but I will say in general, I thought the effects supported the acting and the characterization very well. They never made us feel like, ooh, that person's a robot, or they're just acting out their program, or they're doing what they have to do for the corporation. Nope. Everybody seemed human and natural. I could tell them all apart, and even when I didn't like them, they seemed so real to me. So I thought the characters were very strongly created by the actors. Very impressive piece of work. NT5TM.
All right, thank you, Tony. Let's see, next up is Virginia. Virginia, your thoughts on characterization from KE5ICX.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think the characters stood out from each other. The two main characters were very different personality-wise. That was probably part of what led to their getting their memories erased. Like I said, I felt like this had definitely had an edge of absurdism to it, and so it led to some kind of over-the-top behavior from some of the people who worked for this memory erasing company. They were obnoxious, but they definitely, I think they were supposed to be obnoxious. I think we were supposed to not really like them very much. So yeah, I thought everybody did a pretty good job, and kept me interested in the story, and did a good job of playing the type of character they were supposed to be playing, and showing their range. Generally, the cast of this was pretty stacked. There were some people we've seen a lot more of since then, especially Mark Ruffalo. Man, he's been in a ton of stuff since this movie. Elijah Wood is, he's pretty well known for stuff that even came before this. So, anyway, yeah, acting and characters pretty good. I cared about these people because of, the two main characters. Even if they weren't the kind of people I necessarily liked, I think that was kind of the point. I think Joel was supposed to be kind of a, boring wet blanket, kind of a guy. He's just kind of like, did have that like that kind of, sad sack sort of quality, and then Clementine was supposed to be this, free spirit, goes out, gets what she wants, how she wants it, changes with the wind, and they were supposed to be people that you weren't necessarily supposed to love them like you would want to be their best friend or even want to know them, but that's what was so good about the acting, was that they were the kind of people that it's just a story about these people, and they have their flaws and their shortcomings, but that's everybody, and every couple that gets together and breaks up and then gets back together and stays together, and and spends their lives together, they've got to deal with that in each other, and so I thought that felt real, and I was rooting for them, or at least interested in seeing how it turned out, and I liked the point that it was making at the end, and I thought that the actors did a pretty good job being those characters. They definitely stood apart from one another. All the characters in this did. So yeah, I thought it was good, and I'll add my comments. Robin Williams makes me nervous. I've never felt like he was very funny. All of his comedy to me always felt very forced. I'm not a huge Jim Carrey fan either, as far as, I'm just not a big comedy that's trying to be funny to me, that's self-aware is just not funny, and Stand-up comedy is probably one of my least favorite things on the planet. So those are my 2 cents about that subject. Okay, back to net, NV5F.
All right, thank you, Virginia, and thanks for those comments on this round. Next up, Gregory, KJ5PGN. Gregory, your thoughts on characterization. What you think about our principal characters, and anything you got on any of the goofy secondary characters from KE5 ICX.
I don't really have a lot to say. I think Jim Carrey did a real good job. I think his character definitely stood out a lot more from roles like Pet Detective. I think he did good for this movie, and I think everything played out well, so I really have no comments.
All right, thank you, Gregory. And next up is Sean, KB9SOK. Sean, your thoughts on characterization.
Yeah, this is KB9SOK. Well, I pretty much agree with the group. As I've already kind of touched on, Jim Carrey's character, I actually thought Jim Carrey did a good job with this one. I liked it much better than the other movie that we watched a few weeks back. I felt that he was pretty reserved. I felt that he actually did a really good job with this one. I'm too not a big Jim Carrey fan. I don't hate him, but there's only ever been about 2 movies before this one that I actually liked, but the rest of them, yeah, feel forced. I agree. It doesn't really feel like a true natural comedy. So yeah, no, I'm not a big fan of him or the Adam Sandler kind of comedies. He's another one that I've only ever liked 1 or 2 things he was in. So yeah, no. So I was actually pleasantly surprised. I thought he did a good job. Kate Winslet was no shock. Obviously, she's an award-winning actress. I thought she did a great job playing her character as well. The Louvre, I think we've all probably met somebody like that was just truly free-spirited and just did go whichever way the wind blew. I've known a few people like that when I was younger, and I thought she played that very well. And obviously their characters played off of each other very well because they were opposites. And which is also why it didn't work either. So it kind of shows that whole opposite thing. But I was rooting for them. I was pleasantly surprised the way it ended. I was glad that it had sort of a happy ending. We know they're going to try again, but maybe they've learned something. So yeah, it does make you want to root for them. Yeah, the rest of them, I guess you were, you had the, once again, I'm horrible. Yeah, I can't remember their names either, the 2 main characters. The one that went after Clementine, I think he was meant to be a little on the creepy side, and he was. He played it well. Then obviously we had Bart's character, supposed to be the actual quote-unquote technical person, the one that had the romance with the other girl. But anyway, no, I mean, this cast was definitely pretty well stacked. I agree with that. And I thought overall everybody actually did a good job. So yeah, this was kind of nice to see for a change. Usually we have characters that we don't like or don't like the way they're acted. So yeah, pleasant surprise. Anyway, back to net. KB9SOK.
All right, thank you, Sean. Thank you for your comments. Billye, we're going to hold you in reserve. I'm going to ask you about potentially film suggestions or whether you're going to want to see this film in the future. So I'll come back to you in a little bit. I'll go ahead and ask if there's anyone else out there who'd like to check in this evening. Tonight's movie is Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind from 2004, Jim Carrey's film. Anyone out there want to join us, please come now with your call sign.
November 5, Bravo Bravo is back. I've seen the whole movie now.
All right, Bill. Well, you're our check-in. I'll get right. We're at the bottom of the list, so I'm going to go ahead and give my comments, and then you'll be next, and we'll let you do the entire gambit, what you thought, saw, and all that jazz. Okay, my comments on the characterization and acting. I like this film. I like Jim Carrey. I thought he did a very good job. He's supposed to play a bookish introvert, a character that he does not play. He always plays a kind of over-the-top extrovert. And he falls into that Robin Williams, Jerry Lewis genre, which drives me frickin' crazy. I'm not alone, apparently, this group feels the same way. However, and I will agree with Thomas, Robin Williams has been able to do some really dramatic roles and done a good job. I will give Jim Carrey, though, a little more credit in the sense that I think he did a pretty good job in this role. Maybe he needs more dramatic roles. I think he was suffering at this particular time. I'm not sure of the timeline in this regard. I know that he had his Pet Detective and some of the other films that he's done, most of which I cannot watch. I'll be honest with you. I cannot watch that guy in these things. I think he's good, and Robin Williams the same way, and Jerry Lewis yet another. It just is an issue. But with that being said, generally speaking, comedic actors can do very dramatic roles, and I'm not sure why that is. A lot of times they have, but I think this is true of many actors, so this could be a prejudiced statement, but I think a lot of times they have a very troubled background. There are reasons why they are funny in order to disarm bullies or bad situations, to add horrible family situations in that, and being the clown or class clown actually works to their favor and keeps them from getting beat up or emotionally battered and things like that. So with that kind of a background, if that is indeed true, I don't know. I've never done the research, but I do know that there are people that are comedians that's where they hail from, and this is their story. I can see how a dramatic role can work. So in this one, because it required Carrey to be introverted and acting that way, he actually did. And he allowed his co-star in this, Kate Winslet, to go ahead and play that. Now, she is playing to type. I believe she's done other roles like this. At least that's what it says in Wikipedia. I've probably seen her in other stuff, but I don't recall what. And that's very common in movies, but she did a fine job, and people liked it, and she was convincing in that regard. So I think the two of them did well. I think our comedy part is actually all the other characters and how they act and react in their kind of gauffant, goofy way. Now, I was thinking about it and I remember in our discussion we discussed as well the whole thing about not being professional and doing stupid things and how over the top that was. And then I started thinking about professions where you have to be good at what you do and realize the same things occur. I know lots of people in the airline industry, and I know lots of people that are in the medical industry, and they've got stories that are absolutely over the top crazy. It might have been over the top. I don't think it was over the top by much. I think there are people out there that really are kind of nutso. And where I live now, there are a lot of retired professionals, lots of doctors, by the way, because the hospital's right across the street. They also have stories like this as well. This is a hoodoo crop outside of Dallas that I talk to on a regular basis, as well as a couple of people from NASA that worked on space, and they have worked on shuttle and worked on Apollo.
and they have crazy stories too. So it happens everywhere, everybody, even in the most stoic professions and intellectual geniuses that are involved. There's still people doing goofy things, and I think that they were the counterpoint in all of this, the chaos that had to be a part of it, and also help move the story in this irregular way. So I enjoyed the folks in it. I thought that it helped make the story move right along. There was no real slow parts, maybe at the beginning, but even that picked up fairly quickly. Just trying to figure out what's going on. You're slowly starting the audience in first gear, get to second, and you're in third gear before the credits ever really begin. So I liked it. The pacing was excellent. Well, we can talk about that on the next round. But I thought that the acting overall worked quite well. Characters were quite good. Tom Wilkinson playing Dr. Howard in all of this. He was very serviceable in that role. Did just fine. I watched The White Coat. I think this is the first time I watched an actor wearing the white coat that did not stick his hands in the big pockets in the front. So I'm going to give him the award, no hands in the front pockets, through the entire film. Congratulations, Tom. You win. Tom Wilkinson wins the award, no hands in the big pockets. All right, we're going to go up to the top. Bill, you've got a lot to say about the film, I think, probably, or maybe you don't. We'll find out. And then I'm going to go down the entire list and see what you got for comments. So, Bill, you're up. N5BB, Unleash from KE5ICX.
Oh, thank you, Tom. This is N5BB. And yes, I saw the whole film in real time. In other words, I didn't jump ahead or anything like that, or jump behind. When I first checked in the net, I'd seen the first half of the movie, and nearly exactly the first half. And I could tell that I was probably going to like it. I could kind of see what the general outline of the plot was probably going to be. And I liked what Jim Carrey and Kate Winslet were doing in the characterization, of those characters. And so let's see, the plot. It is a bit confusing because I think there's multiple ways you can interpret this, because you're seeing it from the point of view from the Joel, the Jim Carrey character. And again, this is the only movie I think I've ever seen where you go 18 minutes into the movie. I looked at it, 18 minutes before you get to the title. And I think they're doing that on purpose, because this was something that was, of course, memories were altered and reality was changed because of that. And so I think that's why they did it that way. And we see later that where we see the movie started wasn't really the start of these things. It was kind of the end of some of it. One thing about the plot that kind of, in one sense, aggravated me in 5BB, we don't see the previous relationship. I'm now forgetting her name, but he mentioned her names a couple of times, and we don't see her, and we don't understand. He doesn't seem to remember her much, although there's some memories that I think are kind of tied up with that, but it's not clear to me exactly which ones that they are. But I think it's just a real interesting idea, the idea of erasing memories, because there have been some scientific experiments of doing that, maybe not in this manner, but in actually going in and trying to erase memories. For instance, there's a medical interest in doing this with people with PTSD to try to get them over their memories that are causing the whole problem with PTSD. And there is, of course, big moral issues with that. And that came, you know, top and center with this movie. You had the doctor that was, for personal reasons, doing some of these changes with his secretary, and she was doing these changes. And you had the people working for the doctor that were screwing around with the system in multiple ways to their own purposes. So it's all very corrupt. It's just rotten to the core, all of that. And which is kind of interesting. and you don't think about it. In the first part of the movie, you don't have a clue that's happening. In other words, you assume it's all on the up and up, and everybody's doing the job the right way, and everything's great. And then you get further down in the movie, and they're all corrupt. Every single one of them that's doing this memory change. And so it's kind of an anti-medical establishment thing, a little bit of that, kind of poking at people that are dealing with people with problems and trying to help them in some way. Anyway, but I think the whole idea of what was similar to time travel, this is in 5BB, in this case, in memory, was kind of an interesting way to do this kind of time travel and going back in time and changing history and everything. The weird part of the movie for me was seeing him go back in his memory and have all these live interactions. I guess he's dreaming about Clementine and trying to make new memories, which is kind of weird. It was, I don't know. I didn't exactly understand the premise of that, you know, scientifically, of him trying to create new memories by doing a dream in there or something. This is in 5BB. I thought it was really funny in one sense and extremely sad that all these technicians and doctor are doing all these personal sexual things around him at his house without his direct knowledge, although a little bit of it kind of leaks in. And they're also inept. You know, they're sitting there and having trouble with the equipment and messing with it and running off and leaving other people. So there's a little bit of pseudo-comedy and all of that, you know. What could possibly go wrong? What could possibly go wrong when you're changing somebody's memories to be having a little party at their house and getting drunk, etc.? This is in 5BB. Anyway, plot. Okay. Again, the characterizations I thought were really good. Of all the characters, including the two technicians, the secretary, Kirsten Dunst, the doctor, all these people, I thought they did a really good job, and I think it was written pretty well also. I liked the way it was filmed. I could understand it. I could hear it. I could follow it, even though because it was altered memories. It was confusing by its nature, but I could still follow what was happening there, and it made sense in a weird way. So, and I liked the music, what didn't distract me from things, and it was fit everything. So I like the production values. So all in all, I'll give this a 9+ out of 10. I guess that's it. This is N5BB.
All right, thank you, Bill, for your comments this evening. Excellent. Next up is Thomas, KI5JCM. Thomas, I know you didn't see the film, and you probably won't. That's okay. Do you have any thoughts or even suggestion for a movie? We'll put it on the list if we can find it from KE5ICX. Okay, we'll go ahead and move down the list. Tony, NT5TM. Tony, your comments, technical or otherwise, or any comments that you would like to, final comments you'd like to make on the film? You're up from KE5ICX.
Well, thank you again. The movie did use a fair amount of CGI, particularly as Jim Carrey's memories were being erased. We see buildings blurring. We see faces turning into, what a bank robber might look like with a pantyhose leg pulled over their face. But what I was fascinated by with the effects was that as I was watching this, I had also been recently watching some videos about the effects in Metropolis and thinking that they could have done a fairly creditable job of this with old black and white film, with a lot of match dissolves and taking advantage of the fact that dark negatives are clear and blurring from, I have a face to I have no face without having to use CGI. So yes, the effects were CGI, but I can imagine them actually working in the 20s and 30s too. Maybe there was a lot of in-camera effects there. I don't know. It looked CGI-ish to me, and I can imagine it being done in, the Citizen Kane era, so we're not sure. But at any rate, the effects very much supported the plot. There was a very real sense of his memories falling apart. I really thought that was effective in supporting of the fear the characters felt. And as Aaron adds, and I want to add my comment too, it was just very, a lot of fun to see the different memories the characters found themselves in. That was something I was really struck by in being John Malkovich too, all the odd things in Malkovich's past. Hold on. And then Jim Carrey's past, or Joel. There were some great little details too. I mean, yes, they couldn't really dye Clementine's hair. She had to wear wigs because her hair would have all fallen out if they dyed it 9 different colors in 6 weeks. But they were even careful at points to put, as Aaron noticed, makeup behind her ears that made it look like she'd gotten some hair dye on her skin. In addition to the things like the melting faces, they made sure to use effects to get a lot of the little details right, and that helps the movie work. The only negative thing I could say in round 3 is, did this movie have music? I guess it must have, but I can't remember a single bit, a single theme, a single leitmotif or musical cue. Whatever it was, it evaporated into the background and I forgot it all. But great effects, great makeup, great wigs, NT5TM.
Okay, thank you, Tony, and thanks for your comments this evening. Next up, Virginia in D5F. Your parting words, and they can be technical or something we haven't covered already in tonight's movie from KE5 ICX.
Okay, well, technically very good. Lots of editing had to be done here, and there had to be a lot of shooting out of order for a story that's out of order. That was probably confusing. I don't envy the script supervisor their task in this film. There was a little bit of music, Tony. There wasn't a whole lot, but and it wasn't classic movie music. There wouldn't have been any themes or motifs or character themes or any theme you'd ever be able to hum or recognize. It was just sort of music here and there that, you know, suited the mood of the scene. But, you know, I guess like you always say, if it was doing its job, so you didn't notice it. But there wasn't very much music in this. But yeah, I think the stuff in it that was sort of a stylistic stuff that I don't necessarily care for suited this pretty well. Just that feeling, that kind of not very atmospheric audio. I think it was David who complained that when Kirsten Dunst was sitting in the leather chair, you could hear the chair as good as you could hear her. But that was the style of this. It was that kind of almost like you are in a bad dream or stuck in a hangover, where you can hear every little sound like way more defined than it should be, and there isn't any room echo on anything. And I don't like that style of audio at all. I complain about it whenever we have movies with that kind of audio or the weird low lighting, and this movie had a lot of that kind of stuff, and I don't like it, but it suited this movie, that kind of disoriented, not really very comfortable feeling that you have, that sort of, you know, makes you wonder if it's a movie or a bad dream. You know, just kind of everything's a little off, and you know, everything's out of order. You're not sure what's going on. You're disoriented. So I thought that worked. It's like I said, this movie is a movie that I'd probably sit and watch again, but not because not because I think it's amazing film or amazing cinematography or that it makes me feel good or happy or inspired, even though the point it made I thought was pretty good. I think I even got a little emotional at the end. I remember shedding a tear or two at the end of it. But I think it was just effectively making its point, and surprisingly so at the end. It was surprising. It had, when I watched the beginning, I would not have guessed what the end was going to be, and that means it did a good job, whether it was my taste or not, and I'm objective enough to give something its due when it's doing well. But this is something I would try. I'd give it another go and just kind of see how much I notice because I thought it had a clever way of telling this story, and overall, technically, it was the kind of the effects in it were the kind of thing that did a good job, kind of like the music. They didn't get in the way. They reinforced the fact that like Tony said, his memories were kind of coming apart at the seams, and the visual effects and other effects reinforced that and didn't get in the way, and didn't overcrowd the story. And I did think the super long sequence before the head credits was a very weird and disorienting thing. You think, oh, this is just a movie that doesn't have head credits. There's like tons of those now. In fact, I don't know if they even find people now. Back in olden times, like, Star Wars and those times, I think that film studios had to pay a fine if they didn't have head credits on their movie, and I don't even know if that's so anymore because so many movies just don't. But this one threw us a curve, like, you know, getting. But it's interesting because the whole opening sequence that preceded the credits was actually the sequence that, in the chronological order, would have preceded the last bit of the film. You know, it was that scene of them getting back together. And starting over again without realizing they were starting over again before they figure out at the end that they're actually starting over again. So I thought that was good. I thought it was clever, and I've never seen anything like that before, and thought there was a lot. You know, I'm glad I stuck this one out. Back to net in V5F.
All right, thank you, Virginia. And yeah, there was just to follow up on your one comment. Yeah, when Star Wars came out, it was required that the credits, I don't know, Screenwriters Guild or something, I don't know who it was, they paid a fine for that, and then that was dropped later on to have opening credits. And I think this is because of the actors and the writers and all of that had to have their due fare, because that's how they would be acknowledged. At least your top liners would be acknowledged at the beginning of the movie. That way they would get exposure. So it was considered a violation. Since it was at the end of the movie, everybody would walk out and not read the credits, and that was the reason that there was that issue. But I think later on it went to court, and they said, nope, you cannot comment on artistic merits of the film. I don't know. I'd have to go back and look and see. But you're right. That was true. All right. Next up on the list is Gregory, KJ5PGN. Gregory, do you have any final comments? And it's okay if you don't. You have a suggestion for a movie we might watch. But I'll give you a chance to say whatever you want before we close out for this evening. So go ahead from KE5ICX.
I have no comments on this movie. I enjoyed it enough that I plan on adding it to my personal collection. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I have no comments for the next upcoming movie, but I'm looking forward to it. Back to net.
All right, thank you, and come on back next week. We'll have something for you. Next up is Sean, KB9SOK. You know the game. Any final comments, technical or otherwise, from KE5ICX?
Yeah, this is KB9SOK. Yeah, technical. We'll just start with, I know Virginia already mentioned it, but yes, your audio is excellent. In fact, it is so good, you sound better than the rest of us. The rest of us have a little bit of crackling on us. You're perfectly clear. So, yeah, very nice on getting that fixed. So, yeah, this movie, thanks. Yes, the CG, yes, was noticeable, but I think it worked in this case because it was that dream sequence. So, almost like, in some ways, it was almost intentional. Even though I don't think it was. I think it was just what they had available, and I think this was 2004. Unfortunately, with CG in recent years, for a while there we had kind of that golden age of where it looked really good because people were going in frame by frame and fixing where CG screwed things up, and now they're just letting it run because they fired all those people, and now today a lot of the new CG actually looks pretty bad. But this movie is fit. Because, once again, it was the dream sequence. So, yeah, I really didn't mind that. And, yes, yeah, I do get tired of the low lighting. This had a lot of that. I wonder if part of that was cost, because even, like, the scene where they're on the ice, you couldn't see anything at all around outside where they were. So, I don't know if they did that just partly because of cost in this particular situation, because in 2004 they hadn't quite gone into that era of making everything dark, like the thing is now, which I agree is annoying. Yeah, the audio was definitely different. It didn't really bother me, surprisingly. I didn't mind it with this movie. It just, yeah, I actually think it worked. And then, yeah, the music just blended, which is, I think, a good sign. So, yeah, overall, I felt that they took some interesting, directing just like that, like using the credits to show you the true beginning of the movie, as Virginia had already mentioned. And, I do think they did some very interesting stuff. And I wasn't 100% sure how this would end. And so that's always a nice surprise. I like that it had basically a happy ending. So yeah, overall, I enjoyed this movie. Not something I would add to my collection, but I did enjoy it, and very much enjoyed the conversation as always. Always looking forward to the next one. So back to net, KB9SOK.
All right, very good. And thank you for your comments this evening. Well, I checked and Billye has dropped off. It is the bewitching hour of midnight, so it's expected that folks kind of like fall asleep. I remember one time I actually was running this net and I fell asleep during the net. People were talking and the video was still on and it had stopped and there was a freeze frame. I woke up and it was at 4 o'clock in the morning. And I was laying there with my head in the back of the chair with my mouth open, my nose pointed towards the ceiling. So it can happen to anybody, even the net control. So my final comments can't really add much to what's already been said. I did enjoy the special effects in this. I guess that they were still a thing in 2003, 4, whenever when this movie came out. 2004, but I kind of enjoyed that, and I love the scenes where the house is disintegrating. I mentioned this earlier. The visuals are really a lot of fun. I'll go back and watch these things. I find that fascinating because I know there's a lot of back work that goes on to make those things happen, and usually there's some Easter eggs in there. I noticed when I was watching the first time I saw the scene start to change was the repeat library sequences were there. But one of them was that the books were starting to lose their titles. There was one that disappeared, and it was like for half a second, and the scene changed, or it was a close-up headshot after that, and then they did the 2-headshot back. And then I noticed, oh yeah, all the book titles are starting to disappear, and they were all white by the time that scene had mostly ended. Of course, this thing dissolves into one scene after another, so no surprise there. So I enjoyed that quite a bit. Pacing was excellent. Sound was good. I'm one of the rare times that I really didn't notice the music. I generally like, and I'm a fan of soundtrack music. I'm always looking for it and seeking it out. But I think I was so immersed in the story, at least the second half of this thing, I completely forgot about the music. So I have no comment because it kind of it's so involved in the story, I kind of lost track of what was going on as far as the usuals that we talk about. So, good film. I enjoyed it. It was an unexpected surprise, a critical hit, and a popular hit, too, which was a surprise in and of itself. Okay, comments. Here we go. Next week's movie, I had to look something up here, but I found one. It's a science fiction film from 2004 called The Big Empty. It says here the synopsis is struggling actor John Pearson agrees to drive a blue suitcase to Los Angeles to a small town in Baker.
Repeater, timeout, 4:15 seconds. The time is 12:05 a.m. Timeout. Timer reset. Repeater enabled.
Tom, you timed it out for a very long time. We heard nothing about the new movie, Inside BB. Bozo alert.
Yeah, I forgot that happens after midnight, so I timed it out. Next week's movie, The Big Empty from 2003. I'll send out the invites tomorrow morning. I'll double check and make sure this is a science fiction film because it was listed under science fiction on the movie site that I saw. So that'll hopefully be the movie for next week. It's about an hour and a half long. That's it for me, KE5ICX clear.
Tom, you were asking earlier about input for new movies. You want my input for another movie?
Yeah, go ahead, Bill. I'll take any suggestions.
I'm sorry, I doubled with you, Tom. Inside BB. You want the input for a movie?
Yeah, give me your list.
I think we need to go to a comedy. We need something like Mel Brooks. And although I like so many things of his, I'd recommend one that's got a little bit of pseudo kind of science in it. High anxiety. Do you think that would work for Afterglow movie, Inside BB?
Those who are late will not get fruit cup. Yeah, I think that would be a lot of fun. That's a good film. It's a send-up of the Alfred Hitchcock murder mystery genre.
Yep. It's been a while since I've seen that, but I think there's a lot we can probably talk about in that movie. And although we could also do Spaceballs with the Rick Moranis, that would also be okay, but I like high anxiety. Anyway, that's my suggestion. I'd rather us get back to some kind of classical, interesting movies, like things by Alfred Hitchcock and Mel Brooks and other things. Anyway, but we'll be looking for The Big Empty. See you later, KE5ICX and the group Inside BB. Good night.
I put it on the list, Bill. I'll look into it and see what we can do. Have a good evening. I'm going to bed. KE5ICX. I'm clear.